You think you know what power looks like. Private jets, diamond watches, sprawling estates with names instead of addresses. But that's just the storefront. That's what the ultra-rich want you to see. Real power, it's quieter, stranger, sometimes darker. And here's the twist: when you've got everything money can buy, you stop buying things. You start buying experiences, control, access, people. It's not about wealth anymore. It's about the thrill of bending the world to your will. And that's the billionaire fetish most people never talk about. It's not always leather and latex. It's not some cliché you'd find in a pulp novel. The ultra-rich have a different palate. When you've already eaten at every 5-star restaurant, flown first class since birth, and had your pick of luxury since college, you don't crave luxury. You crave what's rare, what's forbidden, what's off limits to 99.9% of people. That could mean brokering influence behind closed doors, rewriting laws with a single check, or funding secret ventures that never make it to the headlines. You think they collect cars? Try collecting identities. Try shaping industries, steering elections, or owning pieces of your digital life through data companies you've never even heard of. You think it's about excess, but it's really about exclusivity. The fewer people who can experience it, the more it becomes a status symbol. Not just yachts, but yachts that never dock. Not just art, but art that never gets seen. Ownership becomes a game of invisibility. It's not about showing off, it's about knowing you own something so elite, no one else even knows it exists. There's a reason the ultra-rich fund underground bunkers, off-grid retreats, and private islands. Not just for luxury, but for control. Control of space, of narrative, of reality itself. Because when you have everything, reality starts to feel too accessible, too shared. So they build their own one where they're not just rich, they're gods, untouchable, unseen, unquestioned. And the rest of us, we're the audience. We're the test subjects. We're the data points. And somehow, we're still mesmerized by their Instagram feeds and Forbes features, never realizing that what they show us is just the smoke. The real fire is hidden, burning in back rooms, encrypted files, and whispered transactions. And it's got nothing to do with money anymore. Because once you've bought the entire menu, you stop looking at what's served. You start rewriting the recipes. That's how far removed the billionaire class is from you. They don't wait in lines. They erase them. They don't follow trends. They create them, sometimes just for fun, sometimes just to watch the ripple. And the more you look, the more you'll see it. Their real obsession isn't with wealth. It's with reality distortion. Think about the private schools you've never heard of, where the next generation of dynasties are molded. Not educated, molded. Think of the biotech startups experimenting with life extension, not to cure disease, but to stretch their dominion over time itself. Or those AI labs, not built for public good, but to automate control, to predict behavior, to sharpen the edge of influence. These aren't hobbies. These are obsessions. And they all whisper one truth. The fetish isn't sex or status, it's God mode. When you can buy anything, the only thrill left is reshaping the game. Some hoard rare passports like trophies, one for every backdoor into global systems. Others bankroll revolutions, but not for ideology, for leverage, for market shifts, for sport. That's the part you don't see in the headlines. These people aren't playing Monopoly. They're playing civilization. And we're just pieces on the board. Look at how they play with perception. They'll donate millions to a hospital wing, then quietly invest in pharmaceuticals that profit off the same illnesses. They'll fund environmental campaigns while owning jets that burn more fuel in an hour than you do in a year. It's all part of the illusion. Philanthropy becomes a cloak. Impact investing becomes a strategy. Even failure becomes a tool, because when you're that rich, losing money is just a way to move pieces. And still, we idolize them. We quote their tweets like gospel, devour their memoirs, mimic their morning routines like it's a magic spell. But billionaires don't meditate for peace. They meditate for precision. They don't fast to feel connected. They fast to optimize. Every move is calculated. Every indulgence delayed. Because when you're chasing godhood, pleasure is secondary. Power is primary. And what happens when power becomes an addiction? You start testing limits. Not because you need to, but because you can. That's where the fetish deepens. The ultra-rich don't just want influence. They want to bend the rules. Sometimes, to break them entirely. Not recklessly, but surgically. They treat laws like glass, meant to be looked through, not obeyed. That's why they hire armies of lawyers, not just to defend them, but to pre-clear their next move. When you have that kind of shield, morality starts to look optional. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen. Just because the elite all believe in something doesn't make it smart. It makes it powerful. And today's billionaires believe in something far more potent: untouchability. That they can operate in the shadows with impunity. That consequences are for the poor. And they're not entirely wrong. When fines are pocket change, and scandals are just PR puzzles, what incentive is there to stop? So they push, they test, they walk right up to the line, and then redraw it. You'll see it in how they treat people. Employees are data points. Partners are pawns. Even friends become assets. Relationships aren't built on trust, they're built on leverage. And if someone becomes inconvenient, there are 10 ways to silence them, all perfectly legal, all deeply chilling. But it's not just about evading consequences. It's about reshaping society to suit their tastes. Billionaires fund think tanks to influence policy. They buy media outlets to steer narratives. They back school curriculums to mold the next generation's worldview. It's not conspiracy, it's strategy. Long-term, generational strategy. And most people never see it because it moves slowly, invisibly, like erosion. One day you wake up and realize the world you live in looks suspiciously like a billionaire's playground. They don't just want yachts and islands, they want immortality, legacy, digital copies of their minds uploaded to servers, cryogenic backups, genetic tinkering. They're not preparing for retirement, they're preparing for ascension. And you're too busy trying to pay rent, stuck in the maze they designed, chasing dreams they sold you. But here's the twist they never expect. You can see through it. If you're paying attention, because the cracks are showing. You can sense it when a billionaire starts posting relatable content, trying to humanize themselves like they're one of us. You can feel it when they suddenly champion causes they ignored for decades. That's performative vulnerability. A mask. Because the only thing more dangerous to them than exposure is irrelevance. Their biggest fear, losing control of the narrative. That's why they invest in influence. Not just politicians, but creators, influencers, platforms. They don't just shape policy, they shape preference. They want to own the lens through which you see the world. Because if they own the lens, they own your behavior, your vote, your consumption, your beliefs. And if they can't control you through admiration, they'll do it through division. Pit you against your neighbor. Flood your feed with outrage. Distract you with culture wars while they rewrite the rules of the economy. Keep you fighting over crumbs while they buy the bakery. That's the real fetish, not just power over the system, but power over your focus. Because what you focus on, you empower. And if you're distracted, you're disarmed. But when you stop chasing what they dangle in front of you, the lifestyle, the status, the illusion, you start to reclaim something they can't buy: discernment. You start asking questions. Who benefits from this? Who profits from my attention, my outrage, my silence? And suddenly, the smoke begins to clear. The billionaire class doesn't fear revolutions. They fund them when it suits them. What they fear is consciousness. A society that sees through the spectacle. That stops idolizing and starts interrogating. That stops consuming and starts creating its own reality. Not in a private bunker, but out here, in the open, with principle and purpose. You remember that part about collecting identities? That's what they've really stolen. Your sense of self. your authorship. But it's still yours to reclaim. And when you do, you stop being a pawn. You become a player. You start building your own narrative, one they can't edit, censor, or sell back to you. And now, here you are. Aware. The illusion's been pierced, and you can't unsee it. You understand now that the billionaire fetish isn't about wealth, it's about dominion. Over time, over truth, over the future. It's not that they want more, they want everything. Influence without accountability. Presence without scrutiny. Worship without question. But that only works when you consent through silence. Through distraction, but that only works when you consent through silence. Through distraction. Through the slow erosion of your standards. And now that you see it, you can choose differently. You can step out of the trance. Because the biggest threat to their empire isn't protest, it's presence. A mind that can't be manipulated. A soul that can't be bought. A life that refuses to play by the rules of the game they rigged. You stop giving them what they crave most, your worship. You stop measuring success by their metrics, net worth, follower count, luxury toys, and start measuring it by your truth, your integrity, your impact. You realize that you don't need to own the world to change it. You don't need a private jet to fly above their lies. What you need is clarity, conviction, a mission they can't monetize. And here's the irony, the more you wake up, the more their power fades. Their castles weren't built on rock, they were built on perception. On the belief that they were special, chosen, superior. But when you strip away the PR, what are they really? Just people. People with more toys, yes, but also more fear, more fragility. Because when your identity is built on control, the mere idea of losing it is terrifying. That's why they keep doubling down. Why they chase immortality. Why they can't stop. But you can. You don't need to chase what they chase. You don't need to play the same game. Because your worth isn't measured in assets or access. It's measured in how fully you live, how deeply you love, how fiercely you tell the truth in a world built on illusion. You're not here to envy them. You're not here to imitate them. You're here to transcend them, to build something real, something rooted, something that doesn't need a brand name or $1 billion valuation to matter. You're here to create a life so rich in meaning that no amount of money could ever compete. That's the new rebellion. That's the real revolution. And the moment you stop chasing their version of success, you become something far more dangerous than rich. You become free. And freedom. True freedom is the one thing they can never own, never buy, never bury. It's yours, if you're bold enough to claim it.